Hi.
Ah, yay.
Hi.
Awesome. Welcome, Lisa. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm good. I just realized I don't have my headphones in. Should I put headphones in?
If you like,
And is
totally.
that better?
It sounds fine as is, but
Okay, if it sounds fine, then why mess with it? Hi, thanks for having me.
thank you so much. It's so nice to gather with you and talk about all kinds of things, but just in conjunction with the very week where we featured your piece in our Piano Music She Writes
Yay.
project. And people who are listening, hopefully you've heard it, but if not, you can just go to our YouTube channel and look for it. It was posted on Wednesday, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
it's so
usually
exciting.
usually we post our composers piano music she writes projects on the first Wednesday or Saturday of the month. So anyway, so as people join in, let's get it going anyway, and people
Okay,
can
great.
watch after the fact if that happens. So like I usually start with where you're from, where your musical training, what it was like, and your influences and role models.
Sure. Oh, thanks again for having me. I'm so excited that my piece is part of this project. So my story is kind of one of always circling around a couple of different art forms that I just am super passionate about. And so one of them is music and performing and particularly singing. That's one of my main focuses. And then composing, but also text and story. And I have a background in theater. And so that's really where my story begins is I took some piano lessons. I took some harp lessons as a youngster, and I loved the music. And I particularly love, like on the piano, the storytelling music, like the soundtrack arrangements from my
Ah,
favorite
yeah.
movies. But that desire for story led me to musical theater and then to just straight theater in high school and in the community theater community. And that eventually led me to Lewis and Clark College, which is a wonderful liberal arts school in Portland. So I'm originally from Kent, Covington area, south of Seattle. That's where I grew up. And I went to undergrad at Lewis and Clark College. And this was a great place for someone like me who came in not knowing if I wanted to do theater or music or visual art or creative writing or
Oh, that's
really
great.
anything creative, right?
Yeah. So
And
good
it
to
was a
find a
wonderful
school
place.
that allows that wide expanse. I often have a bit of a challenge guiding teenagers, like you've got this gift, this gift, this gift, which, but you have to choose. So that's fantastic that
Right.
you had a spot there where you could explore it
Yeah.
all.
I like to tell people, I mean, I was not someone who could have gotten into a conservatory in undergrad. I didn't know what a conservatory was. I didn't know the difference between symphony and orchestra. I didn't know a concerto from a sonata. Like I didn't know any of that stuff. I liked to play the piano. I liked to sing, particularly in musicals. I hadn't sung classical. I hadn't gotten involved in choir until college. So I kind of wandered into Lewis and Clark College and new student orientation and mentioned, hey, I might be interested in the music major. I don't really know what that's about. And that was the kind of school where that was okay. And I got whisked into our wonderful dean, dean or chair of the department at the time, Eleonora Beck, who was our musicology professor. And she just helped me pick out my classes and walked me
Oh,
down to audition for choir.
amazing.
And yeah, and then, again, in theory class, we were asked, who wanted to learn how to compose. And I didn't really know that there were concert music composers. I knew there were film composers. I knew there were recording artists. So if you had asked me who are your favorite composers as an undergrad, starting out, I would have said like John Williams and Rachel Portman and Lorena
Wow.
McKinnon. And yeah, like I didn't know. And that was an okay answer. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't laughed out of the room. It was wonderful. So
Awesome.
I ended up doing an undergraduate degree in theater as well as in music. And then I took 1 billion credits and did all the classes for a voice degree and for a composition degree. And I honestly don't remember which one was on the transcripts, but everyone was so supportive. And you really could just in a school like that with such a great faculty, you could go as far as you wanted if you were ready to work hard. And I was ready to work hard.
Right.
So I studied composition with Forrest Pierce, and then he actually got a job halfway through at University of Kansas. So my second half of my degree at Lewis and Clark, I studied with Michael Johansson, which was really wonderful to have 2 mentors in a small undergrad program is pretty unique, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Voice with Susan McBarry and Anna Hagenson. And then I decided to go on and get my master's in composition at University of Kansas. I'd stayed in touch with Forrest, and
Okay.
he had me out to get to know the school, and it was a really wonderful program, very much a program where you spent a lot of time composing, which was wonderful. So I earned my master's there, but I was noticing I was really missing singing. And so very, very happily, Julia Broxholm was a member of the voice faculty, and she made a spot for me and really mentored me through some things in my technique that I wanted to work on. And I sung for a year with Lyric Opera Kansas City Chorus and decided I wanted to continue on and get a doctorate in voice. And that's what led me to University of Iowa, where I earned my doctorate in voice. And that was kind of the switch. So like during my master's, the voice was on the back burner and I was kind of missing singing. And then during my doctorate, I was really singing and I started to go, oh, I miss composing. And I started to feel that imposter syndrome. Like, am I a composer if I haven't written anything new in a couple years, you know? Feels so, like every year really feels like it counts, I think, when you're at that age and trying to figure out your identity. And I really felt that urgency. But what was wonderful was as I finished my doctorate and was wrapping up my dissertation and was mentioning to all these colleagues I'd been making for years and years now, right? Oh, I kind of miss composing. Well, all of them had grown up in music too. And so they had ensembles or they had faculty appointments and they had need for music. And so when I started to hang my hat out that I wanted to compose again more, that was about 6 years ago when I finished my doctorate. And it's been a wonderful life of composing since that. Just many, many people have invited me to collaborate with them. And that's been super wonderful. So it's been kind of all over the place in terms of what's been at the front burner and what's been on the back burner, but I always come back to those passions of mine.
Sounds quite balanced, even though probably at any given moment it doesn't feel balanced. Yeah. But that you keep that, you know, both sides in sight. That's so fascinating. Yeah. And yeah, the world isn't necessarily set up to say, yeah, you can be two things. Right. So it must be challenging in that way. But
yeah, I think, you know, our graduate programs mean well, but I don't know that they're set up for people to do multiple things because everyone goes into their specialty. And so, yeah, I agree. I think it takes that sort of reminding ourselves that we get to be who we want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
We can have multitudes.
I have a little understanding of that in a different way. I've always been kind of equally the solo pianist and the collaborator with singers. And over time, it's been that same kind of thing. Well, you need to focus on one or the other. If you're this, then people aren't going to take you seriously as that, and vice versa. And yeah, actually, no. I'm just who I am, and both of those are my expression. That's who I am. I need to do both. So yeah, but then it does go like that. A few years of more focus there, then come back and more focus there. Yeah, balance over the course of time. So
that's fascinating. Yeah, I totally agree.
When you did, like, you went to undergrad, you already knew that composing was an interest. So at what point were you composing, like at the beginning?
Yeah. You know, I started to make up songs when I was very little, but again, I don't think I knew what that was or what that could be. I just didn't quite have models. Like a lot of us were taking piano lessons, and then you were like listening to like soundtracks. And so there was an interest in music that had just been written, but it didn't seem connected because there just wasn't clear, like, where are the real composers for the thing I'm doing in my lessons, right? Didn't seem connected yet. But I had a really lovely experience where my piano teachers did encourage me to write my music down. And so I had a few little songs that I wrote for piano or for harp, and I played them at, you know, the recitals or at the county fair. We would have kind of a harper circle where you could just share any song. So I shared a little song that was a lullaby. And I think it was really, what I remember doing at that time was pulling apart those elements of what I was doing. So like in the harp, you're always practicing arpeggios, right? So, there's a lot of arpeggios, or there's a lot of those broken chord patterns that you learned, or I don't think I knew the word for it. In fact, I know I didn't know the word for it, but a lot of chromatic median relationships, kind of going down by thirds and noticing that, notes were overlapping and it sort of sounded cool,
Cool.
And it's interesting because now I do see myself continuing to be drawn to some of those elements in my music, the descending thirds or the root position. Like I love root position chords, kind of power chords. I think they're really
so
common in movie music, and so those are the first pieces. But I don't think I even quite knew what to call myself at that time.
Right.
Like I don't think I quite had a vocabulary for that.
Right. It was just a natural expression, I guess. It wasn't like I am now a composer.
Sure. Yeah. And my teacher encouraged me to write a fugue at one point, and then I really got overwhelmed because I don't think I'd even really played very many fugues at that point. And the intricacy, it was an interesting exercise, and I think she had such a great confidence in me that she invited me into the deep end. Which was definitely intimidating at first,
But did you have like all kinds of 18th century harmony and counterpoint lessons prior to that?
No, I don't think so. I think it was more kind of this compositional exercise that was sort of showed me amazing trust in me, which I think was wonderful for her to show.
So, what age would this writing for the harp circle composition?
Probably like middle school. Yeah.
So what is that? What age is that?
Yeah, probably like 12 or something.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I wrote a few little songs in high school for the piano, and one of my piano teachers sadly died from cancer while I was in high school, and I wrote a piece for her and played it at her funeral.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was one of the first pieces I really feel like I really wrote from beginning, middle to end, and put it down on paper. That and this little Star Child's Lullaby for the Harper Circle were two of my earliest pieces. Yeah,
and it doesn't sound like you would have had any issue with being confident in offering those pieces as a composer of that age group.
Yeah, I think what's wonderful is, as a harpist, and I only played harp a little bit, but much of the repertoire, especially the method books, there's a lot of women putting forward harp method books and harp compendiums for learners. And so I think there was like a really nice community around that.
Right.
That was wonderful, and gave me a lot of confidence. And my piano teachers and the harp teacher I took a few lessons with were all women. And so I had some very strong leadership in that to give me confidence. Different in undergrad, I was the only woman composer. In my grad program, I was the only woman composer at the graduate level. There was me and there was one undergrad. But my teachers were very supportive and also very transparent, about like, hey, we need to change this, and this isn't fair, and we have to make some changes. And they were very supportive of me and aware that there was this imbalance that they had to do the work, and they were willing to do the work for. So
wow, that sounds really like you've been really supported and guided in a lovely way from so early on. So
yeah, I was very lucky.
Yeah, beautiful. So did you never then sort of suffered this what is it called? Feeling fraudulent or doubt in your being a composer? It sounds like it was like, no, this is what I do. Here it is.
Yeah, I've experienced the sexism, but I think I was lucky that it came later. Right. And I had very good mentors, very feminist teachers, even though they were men, they were very feminist. To me, it's more happened in the sort of later, more recent years where I've experienced being like kind of the only woman in the room situation, that I think a lot of us can relate to, maybe in a professional organization context, or sort of the subtle shifting of like emotional labor, onto me, or the attempt to shift it onto me and the resistance if I shift it off, or mission creep with whatever you volunteered to do in sort of a predominantly older white male organization. So
still.
kind of more in the professional organization or professional kind of circles, that's where I've more noticed those subtle things, and I feel very fortunate it hasn't been more overt, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
But your
yeah. And
consciousness is there, and so you know how to, like you say, shift it back.
sometimes
Oh, here you go.
I wish I could be more on it. You know, I
Hmm.
think I've definitely felt like there's been times when I've had to experience a certain kind of that sort of covert sexism a
Hmm.
few times before you have that moment where you finally experience it with clarity and can say something that you want to say in the moment, like, oh,
Right.
wow, no, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. And so,
Yeah. Good. Awesome.
mhm.
Well, let's go back to composing and the actual process. If there is sort of one process or way that you approach composing, can you somehow describe that?
Yeah. So for me, I find most of my inspiration from something external. Most of the music I write has some kind of program, even if it's just a feeling or an image. And sometimes things are much more detailed than that. Um, so, like, I have a piece about a jellyfish species, the immortal jellyfish. It's a bassoon duo, and that sort of takes you through the life cycle of the jellyfish across multiple movements. So that's very, like,
That's
very detailed.
specific. Yeah.
Yeah, and other times it's more general. But I find when I have that, I usually, um, it starts with what am I going to write for if I have a commission or a project I'm going to do, talking to the performers as much as I can about what do they like, what in my music attracts them, because I have a pretty wide catalog of styles and of textures and how much extended technique or how much lyricism or how much this and in what combinations. So talking to them, listening to works that they have performed, to some of their favorite
Mm.
pieces. Then I like to, from that, maybe we come across a topic or an area where we might draw inspiration that resonates with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to have kind of a marinating process, I call it, where I'm not writing yet, but I've sort of gathered in a lot of information
Okay.
about the performers, about the topics we're excited about. We have maybe a theme that's emerging or an area. And all of this can kind of swim around in my subconscious as I'm going about my day, as I'm running, as I'm doing errands, as I'm cooking. And then when I really sit down after, a couple of weeks of that marinating, I have a lot more to draw on than if I went right from let's commission you, let's choose a topic, and now the next day writing.
Right.
It doesn't
Right.
feel like it's deep. And I've done
Yeah.
stuff around projects. We all know what that's like.
Yeah.
But so
Hmm.
then a lot of times I'm doing some research, like if it's an animal or a landscape, I'm pulling images from online and printing them out and making like a little poster, or printing things out and sticking them in a binder, watching videos if it's an animal or a landscape, trying to get a feel, going places if I can, if
Mm-hmm.
it's nearby, going to the tide pools or going to the mountains or something, and really listening. And my most interesting ideas come from not me thinking in my music corner, what does a fish swimming look like, but actually looking and going, oh, that's weird. That does this little whip tail thing. Well, what would that sound like? And that
Mm.
generates the most interesting ideas for me, is when I really look or listen and try to pour some of that into the
Right.
motivic content.
Wow.
So
Beautiful.
I usually generate ideas either the piano or singing and humming and sort of very, very roughly scribbling them down, whatever is the most important element. If I'm mostly interested in the notes in that idea, maybe the rhythms are kind of iffy, or if it's more of a rhythmic motive, I'll get the rhythms down really tight, but maybe assign relative high and low pitches on the percussion later. I generate a lot of stuff I don't keep. I do a
Right.
lot of crappy first draft stuff.
Great.
And then from that, some things start to emerge. Like if there's something that just keeps earworming around,
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to trust that. I think sometimes in our academic training, we sort of learn to um, be more cautious of some of our ideas. Like your first idea may not be good. You got to work
Mm.
harder. And
Mm.
there's a place for that. But I've more recently been more interested in sort of that trust and love and flow that, you
Beautiful.
know,
Yeah.
if something is really like spinning in my brain and I can't forget it, it must be there for a reason. And let's
Right.
just go with it,
That's the true thing
Yeah.
that wants out. Yeah.
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 So when those
Beautiful.
start to emerge, then I sort of can shape the the work and sort of go, okay, this might go here and then this might go here, and oh, I need something over here to connect, or something like that. And it becomes a little more logical, sequential problem solving than just voice generation. And I try to send those things out to performers and get feedback, or I ask a lot of questions, you know, how's this, or is that too far of a reach, or you know, how's this trill? Is that one of the ones that's weird? You know, remind me, because I don't play all the instruments I write for. And then notation and cleaning up and sending off a polished score, but still, when we do rehearsals, things might change, and that's part of it too. I really feel like the ink is wet until that first rehearsal and premiere, and then maybe even after we go back and go, actually, I do want that for the second performance changed, you know. And again, being okay with that, you know, it's not a test of did you get it all done in abstract. It's a living art form, you know. Let's make it a living art form. So that's generally my process.
Right. Beautiful. I noticed just now your beautiful explanation of all that, that there was a lot of water coming up. There were the jellyfish. There was, well, marinating in some sort of liquid. There's the fish. How does the fish move? There was swimming. And then we have the blue whale this week as part of our project. And so I have a surprise that Erika is available.
Oh, yay!
To join us for a short time, or hopefully for the rest of the time. I think she's still here. And because she was the one that played it. Oh my God, there she is.
Hi, Erika. Hi.
Yes.
Oh, it's just so fun.
So maybe we could move into speaking, like a little dialogue between the two of you about that piece. And first of all, Lisa, how that specific piece came into being manifested.
Yeah, thank you. This is so exciting. So we have this neat initiative in a group that I'm a part of here in Portland, in Oregon area, is Cascadia Composers, which is a chapter of a national association of composers, and it's our local chapter. And they have a yearly concert where we write pieces that are for student players of different teachers in the area, and we get a lot of piano teachers that get involved, some string teachers, and it kind of varies who's involved, but there's always a really wonderful cohort of piano teachers and their students. And so every year I've tried to write a new piece that's for sort of a beginning to intermediate piano student and to submit, you know. So this was one that I wrote that wasn't chosen for the concert last year, but I wrote it last year and kind of threw it out into the consideration. I had a different piece that somebody chose, which was really wonderful. But it was really fun to write, and I love water. Being from the Pacific Northwest, we kind of have the water on one side and the mountains on the other. And I was very interested in exploring, like, just this huge animal, right? The largest living animal on our planet right now, the blue whale, and what would that sound like, and going to sort of the extreme low end of the piano and enjoying that really resonant, and sometimes it's a little muddy. And, you know, I think there are times as a composer when you're reading about that or being taught about that those kinds of words will be used as like a warning, like, warning, the low end can be muddy of the piano, you know. And I'm like, no, that's cool. Let's go for it. Like, and what better way to express this big animal? So that was kind of the impetus for that piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, I have to say that when I was working your piece up, Lisa, like, I had so much fun because, I mean, how often do we as pianists get to really linger down there and concentrate on, I don't know. And I was on a good piano that I really love. So it was sort of like, oh, I've never gotten to know this part of you, Mr. Piano. But it was really awesome. So yeah, I loved working on it.
Yay. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, you know, even though it has that depth and that you are down there a lot and you expose that area, it also has that beautiful, like, sparkly stuff in the right hand. And that's actually really prominent too. So for me, it was a really beautiful but simple exploration of, like, the whole piano.
Yay.
Yeah, and I like that. And I also loved. I mean, I really like more simple. I hate the word simple, straightforward, right? Pieces, because it really helps you to concentrate on things. And the other thing I loved about that piece is your concentration on certain intervals, you know, and it was so perfect for whatever reason for whales and for water. And I don't think you could use it for like starfish or you know another. Yeah, it was just perfect. So
well, the whale is such a primal being, right? And so those fifths that you use a lot, I think, really evoke that, and yeah, that underwater feeling in the bass. Yeah, so
yeah. And the other thing I loved, not that I've been thinking about this a lot, but I do, because it's such a cool piece. And this was actually made it kind of hard. So like, even though it's an intermediate piece, like I had a hard time recording it.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
I was like, oh, I had such a hard time getting it just the way I wanted it. Because, you know, you have like the tempo change, you push forward and then you get to this faster tempo, but the whole time you have those eighth notes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I wish I were a metronome at this point. But it was also so evocative to me of, okay, you've got this gigantic animal, right? But, and you would think like it only moves slowly. Like people think that about giant tortoises too. But whales can also move quickly, you know? And so I think that just offers such a great visual and an energy picture of the animal. And so that was really fun, but difficult, Lisa. I was sort of muttering under my breath.
Yeah, and I do recall you mentioning to me when I was listening to it to put it together, like, should I do it again? Like, is it okay? And I was like, I get what you're saying, because it's all very exposed, because it's so it needs that precision. But I thought it sounded fantastic, and God, no, you don't need to do it again.
No,
but I get that working with it for a while, you'd start to doubt. But
and I think
fantastic.
I know one thing. Some other performers have told me this, that I tend to write exposed, and as a composer, you sort of go through the world, and we know that. You know, there are certain styles that are very complex, and I have some parts of my musical output that are more complex, but, you know, I'm a performer myself, and I have great faith in performers. And so I'm like, cool, yeah, do something amazing with this simple or straightforward line. You know, I'm very interested in that. And, you know, then that question can come up sometimes, you know, if you're one composer on a concert of a lot of music is, oh, watch out, something that looks straightforward might still need rehearsal time. And those are definitely conversations I've had with people where they're like, wait, we thought we wouldn't need much rehearsal time.
Right.
In the piece. But I also think, like, when I was writing, thinking of sort of maybe a student performer learning a piece and wanting to keep some elements straightforward and maybe even stretches sort of moderate, but then what's the learning, where are the learning opportunities? And also what can we do that's cool and different, that doesn't require like a bunch of technical things that maybe someone hasn't been to yet. So like sliding your butt down to the low side of the bench, right? But keeping a finger pattern that maybe is something that has been used before, right? Were some of those things, or, well, we'll work on steady tempo, but also you won't have to stay there the whole time. You do get a push into something, you know? So those were some thoughts I had when I was writing it too.
Yeah, well, it's great. And it made me very curious. I need to look at your other ones that you've written. Because they would be a cool set too, I imagine. I don't know, because I haven't heard them all yet. But and
they're all water right now. They're all sea creatures at this point.
And I love that.
Perfect.
I grew up in California, in the Bay. But we as a family, we spent a lot of time in Monterey. And so, you know, there's the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and there's kelp all over the otters. So I saw you have one about sea kelp, I think.
Yes, I do. Yeah, kelp forest. Yeah,
that's got to be next, obviously.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, no, that one's a fun one. Yeah, that one was chosen for the in good hands last year, and a very wonderful young pianist performed it and did a fantastic job. It was really wonderful to work with him.
I have a question actually about that, if you don't mind. Like, I mean, it's cool to be writing these for an actual event that kids are going to be performing them at. So do you find, because I know as an adult, sometimes it's intimidating to perform a work that was written by a living composer because you know that they might listen, and that can be intimidating, quite frankly. So I'd be really curious to hear, like, what the experience of these kids were like, or was it a situation there where because they're young, it didn't really bother them, or they didn't think about, oh my gosh, the composer's going to be listening to me.
Right. I think that's interesting. And, you know, I was lucky. I've worked now. I had one piece that was performed 2 years ago, and then two that were performed, or three that were performed last summer on the virtual concert that they did. Well, I guess they were both virtual because I've been in COVID for so long. And I think the teachers could probably speak better than I. My sense was that it varied by student. Like some students, it was no big deal. Okay, I'm just doing this, you know, just another thing that my teacher said. And then others that, you know, I would hear back like, oh, you know, they got nervous when you came to the Zoom rehearsal. And so they, you know, fumbled a little more. You know, I'd hear from the teacher afterwards. And of course, like, I'm a teacher. I don't have an ego about it. You know, please, like, do the music and have fun and don't feel intimidated. But, you know, I think it probably varied a bit. But I do know that the young man who performed Kelp Forest last year, this year they're doing it a little differently, where we can write for a specific student if they would like. And so I was very honored because he asked if I would write him another piece.
Oh, lovely.
And this time we get to actually talk in advance. And so I'm so excited. We'll talk soon at a lesson, and he'll get to tell me what he wants in a piece. So that meant a lot to me. So that told me that no matter, okay, whether it seems normal or maybe a little scary, it was clearly positive if someone's coming back for more. And that's what we want, right?
What a gift for you, and also for that student and that teacher. My goodness.
So fun. So grateful.
Oh, wonderful. So Lisa, you talked about how you use a lot of visual inspiration. So in terms of the blue whale, have you encountered a particular blue whale or video or?
But I did, sorry, we have a garage door opening and closing. I don't know if you can hear that. We grew up watching so many, you know, PBS nature shows and Nova and National Geographic. And so we were always very interested, me and my siblings, in sea creatures. My parents love the sea. I've never gotten to see one in real life, but definitely YouTube has been an amazing resource for access. Although I do have to say, I don't think I'm romanticizing this. I miss the like 90s era nature shows, because now there's a lot of kind of sensationalization, you know, blue whale, the giants of the sea, and it sounds like a political ad. So I will admit, a lot of times I will just turn it off, like volume off. And also because then, like, sometimes there's the music, and again, the music kind of sounds like a political ad. Da, 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 boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, no, I want to get my own inspiration. And Shark Week. It's so,
hear your own soundtrack.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever write an Orca piece, keep me in mind, because I have such a connection with killer whale Orca. Oh my gosh.
We should talk about this. Yes, because of course there's the really interesting, unique subspecies of Orca that live only in Puget Sound up near Seattle, and they're a unique subspecies that is actually kind of threatened. Uniquely, they only eat salmon, whereas other Orca whales eat a mixture of fish and like eels and things. So that's been on my mind quite a bit, is that unique population that is so distinct. It is considered a little subspecies.
Do those guys get out as far as near Vancouver Island, do you think? Because that's where I've met them, between Vancouver and Vancouver Island.
Oh, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I'd have to look up, but I do think they're kind of, that whole estuary from Puget Sound up there is probably still
at least
in there.
Connected,
So go out to the open ocean, but I think that's still in that Strait of Juan de Fuca area. So
yeah.
worth your review, but yeah.
Cool.
Very interesting. So yeah, we should talk.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any other specific questions or comments on the blue whale, Erika, or
I think I covered them all, but I'm so excited to thank you in person for that piece.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So thank you.
I'm so excited to thank you. And we just listened to your performance. I'm up here in Olympia, Washington today, helping with my elderly grandmother, and we just sat and listened to your performance. I said, Mama, we have to listen to Erika play the blue whale piece, and she loved it. So it was a very special moment to share that with her.
Oh,
beautiful.
Good. I'm so glad.
Thank you. It was gorgeous. And my fiance loves that piece too. And so he's been bugging me to record it. I'm like, no, I can't record it. We got to have a real pianist play this. And so we have a fabulous recording and a fabulous performance. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's good to see you.
You too.
Thanks. All right, I'll get off so you two can talk.
I'm not dismissing you in any way, Erika. No, you can stay with us if you have the time.
I don't know. Well, I do. All right.
Okay, amazing.
You twisted my arm.
Hello, you're half of piano music she wrote. And a very important half, I might add. What I wanted to just go back a little bit and talk just in your process, Lisa. I had this conversation with lovely Charlotte last week where we talked about how improvisation and composition kind of have an overlap in their Venn diagram. And is that part of your practice, basically?
I so admire people who have like improvisation chops. I am totally not someone who has been trained in jazz or classical improvisation. I admire those people who have done that work and built that skill. My improvisation is sort of more in that idea generation mode, where kind of the thing I do when no one's watching. And then I just kind of make up things at the piano or hum, and I don't really worry too much about if I'm going to forget it unless it really catches my ear, and then I might jot it down. For me, a lot of it is on the way to generating the ideas I might put on the page, and I'm very much trained in that, and my theater degree was the same way. We did a little bit of improvisation games, but I didn't improv training. It was scripted theater was my training, and so again, it was sort of like improvisation as a means of exploring. Maybe we would improv the scene. Don't worry if you mess up the words, or improv your intention, or improv to sort of loosen up and get silly and explore movement or something. And so I think of it kind of in the same way for me. And I would love to develop that more as a performer and as a classical composer, and I've done a few things in a few compositions where I might have sort of like a motive, and you get to decide how many times you perform it, or hear the pitches and displace them up or down. I have some of those things in some pieces, and so that's kind of my way maybe of putting that in a very safe way that I feel comfortable with in my skill set.
Well, there always has to be a balance between freedom and structure, right? So that seems like again a very balanced way of using. Are you a Libra or something?
I'm a Leo.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where that lands on that, but
but this bringing improvisation in structured, prescribed ways. I think that's very interesting. And then the connection with the improv as an actor. It just seems like a great way of developing kind of freedom and the confidence that, there's really no such thing as doing this wrong. I don't know if that is your experience of that. That strikes me.
I think it's so beautiful, because I think in classical music particular, and probably some other acts, but definitely in classical music, we can really have this idea that there's a right way, or there's like a barrier. If you have to be able to do this, and then we can talk about the rest,
Right.
And I even think about this in terms of thinking about how to talk about these kinds of pieces, like pieces that are useful for learners or people, I don't even know what I want to call them, student pieces. That seems to like, but we have to have a way
that too,
about them. But the idea that like, there's no real music and non-real music, it's music.
Right.
And so what we do with it is kind of the thing I'm most interested in, and in the interpretation, or we talk about like in theater that you rehearse so that then you have the freedom to
choices
breathe into it in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that you reinvent Shakespeare's scripts, right? But you are in fact, there is an improvisational, there is a part of it that is different each time, not a recreation, not just trying to go through the motions and hit everything perfectly and mechanically, but like breathing it in. And you don't, no single performance is the same as the next, even of the same piece, wouldn't you want to say?
Definitely. It's rehearsal is about finding the options, and then in the performance you might find even a whole new option that never showed itself. But if you're
I don't know, it's within that shape that we've practiced. It's not reinventing what Clara Schumann wrote, but it is manifesting it, So the true improvisers are in a completely different league of their own from that. But there is an element of that too, of breathing life and living fully. And and I think about that, and when I'm sort of writing these pieces that are the kinds of pieces I would have been playing when I was in middle school, I really am connecting to that moment when I got really excited about what I could express through it. And I was feeling those big feelings as I played.
Right.
And so that's what got me interested in this in the first place. And I hope what interests others too is what they can put into it.
Yeah. And so great that you have this outlet, like I said, to work with those students. Fantastic. And so what about composition students? Do you have any, tips or advice?
Oh, yeah.
As my grandmother would say, advices. Do you have advices for them?
Well, I do think, I've worked with composers of many ages and many experience levels. And I do think there is a part of any art form, but particularly those of us that are generating from a blank slate, and that is, there's a little act of faith that one has to take to just jump. And it's sort of similar to the act of faith the performer takes by just walking on the stage and starting the recital, right? But that blank page and the self-critique that happens before you've even written a note can really shut things down. And as I work with folks who might be working on their first piece ever, or a piece that just feels like a first piece ever, a new step, a new professional step, that hesitancy, that leap of faith to jump and write continues to be something that is challenging. So my biggest thing is to say to write, and to write lots of pieces. And I love going back to there's a famous Ira Glass quote about producing work. I'm going to paraphrase it badly, but Ira Glass, who's the host of This American Life, has this quote about when you start doing something, you're drawn to that art form or that outlet because you have really good taste and you love that. But at first you create work that disappoints you because your taste is better than your ability to deliver. And he talks about how this is the most dangerous moment because this is when most people stop.
Right. And
the most important thing you can do is to just generate work and continue to produce, and you're going to catch up with that. And so whether it's the first piece or the next piece or whatever, that would be my first advice, was just to write music, create music,
do it,
share music, do it on a little bit of a deadline of some kind, and then write the next piece.
That reminds me a little of, sorry to interrupt, Bobby McFerrin, speaking of improvisers, saw him in a show in New York a few years ago, and he did a Q&A at the end. Someone asked him, so what would you say to people who are having trouble improvising? And he was just similarly just set a timer for 10 minutes and just do it. Just improvise and know that you can't stop. until the timer says 10 minutes are up. Even if you get stuck, you get into like, oh, I don't like this, you just keep going. Just keep improvising, even if it's crap. Just keep going.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a kind of
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to have interrupted, but it just seemed...
No, I think that's wonderful. And
yeah.
actually, I should take that as someone who just, says I don't have a background in improvising, then I guess I should just improvise, right? That's wonderful. I don't remember if I had some other magical tip, but yeah, I think to do it is good, and also to do it in community is good. So when you have like a teacher, and a lot of us don't know, you can take composition lessons at any age. Students know they can take piano, or they know they can take clarinet lessons or voice lessons. So you can take composition lessons and get those tips and have that structure to produce, and then to write for yourself. And write for your friends is the other thing, at whatever age, write for yourself and write for your
harp
friends.
Circle, maybe even.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, you're going to get that feedback from what's working, what doesn't work well. You're going to learn about the instrument. You're going to hear it,
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing is we're so blessed to have these really cool software programs out there where people can have that playback feature, and that's really empowering for people and very inspiring. And then I think, though, that leap to sort of handing it to someone can sometimes be a little more scary because we're not used to it, but it really makes a big difference to hear a real person playing and to get excited by that. So those would be some of my suggestions.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's all really...
I have a question. Can I interrupt? It's kind of along those lines in terms of looking for advice for composers, especially for younger ones and people that haven't maybe received a commission before, that type of thing. It seems to me that it can be very difficult for composers to know how and when to ask to be paid for what you do. And I know that you are, at least from what I've gathered from watching you on Twitter, I think you are such a good advocate for composers in that way. Like, you're very giving advice to composers about this topic. And like Sandra and I have talked about this quite a bit about, we don't want to do anything that's going to be giving your music away for free, through our project or whatever. Which is why we really want people to buy your scores when we feature them on our site. But anyway, I think it's difficult for composers because they say, I just want somebody to play my piece. Right? So what would you say to a composer about the whole Icky payment thing? And
Well, I think, first of all, like you said, that whole Icky payment thing, the elephant in the room is nobody likes to talk about money, and artists start to feel like they're super special and only they don't like to talk about money, but no one likes to talk. So the best medicine for that is sunlight and like more talking about money all the time. And then I do think that most of us as composers, and we can talk about whether we should have a different model like nursing where there's kind of a starting salary right off the bat. But the way the world is now, most of us as composers or performers, we sort of have a ladder that we're climbing, right? Where in school, you might write for your friends and they'll play it on their recital, and you're not exchanging money, but you're exchanging services and you're exchanging energy and time and efforts, right?
Right.
And then you might start to get your first few commissions or a competition that pays you a commission, and it might be on the smaller side. It might not be a living wage yet, right? And so I talk a lot with composers about sort of building that ladder of where have you been? Have you been paid at all yet? Well, then maybe the first step is to get a small but a commission that you feel good about, not as an undercutting to anyone, but as saying like, let's go to the next step on the ladder, right? And then once you have that, it's easier the next time to quote something a little higher because you've built that confidence, and you've also, you've built your track history of success, because that's the other thing that anyone in a profession needs to do is build a history of success the way performers, will do this in school. They'll pay money to be recorded and have some samples. They'll do some, collaborations with fellow performers and have that resume. So it's not wrong to build that ladder of success.
Right.
And certainly if you look up a chart as a young composer, emerging, maybe not young, as an early career composer, and you look up at a chart of one of the ones I've shared from New Music Box or something, and you see a number that you are completely terrified to say, you probably aren't ready to say that number yet. And so you have to really feel that whatever it is you ask for, you have to feel confident that you're offering something that is that valuable. And it's okay to start at a place where you really know that, you know?
That's really good advice, Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with gigging, you know,
Yeah,
as a
exactly.
performer, same with gigging, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing I always say is you have to have these conversations face to face or on the phone or on the Zoom call, because it
Right.
has to be a conversation.
Yeah.
Because maybe someone early on in quoting a price is just a little off from what someone else can offer. But if it's communicated in an email with a period, and that performer who's really respects their time might go, oh, I could do 80% of that, but I can't do the whole thing. They might not feel comfortable saying
Right.
that.
Right.
So
and then it's just over.
Yeah, it's just so much more helpful to have these conversations
Right.
and to use our resources together and go, whoa, maybe if your foundation can cover this much, what could we fundraise together?
Right.
Or who else might want it? Could we do it a consortium style? Could we get some more
Right.
performers involved? There are so many different models that happen with conversation, and it's why, like, I don't have a price list on my website. I could, and I respect some people who do, but my personal philosophy is, well, let's sit down and talk about it.
That feels really right.
Figure out what's possible, you know, and where are the different levers we can pull: length, scope, number of
Right.
people, all of that. So those are some ideas.
I really appreciate that point about having a conversation, because often, so name your price to come and give us this concert or presentation, whatever. You don't want to just put a number in an email. Then you just get, oh, well, sorry. Or, but to have a conversation, that's beautiful. It's like, why not have the confidence in saying, yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think there's this thing about, we just need to normalize these discussions.
This talking about money. Yeah. Exactly. That's excellent.
Yeah. So thank you. And, you know, I just know that, recently recently our trio has been talking with Lisa about commissioning a piece. And I had a feeling this would be an easy discussion with Lisa, because I've seen on Twitter that she's just putting it out there. I mean, there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. You shouldn't be hesitant to ask for a price or anything. It's just important to discuss. And I know that there have been some composers that I've worked with that are so sheepish about asking, or they've even asked me, well, should I just give it away for free? And it's like,
no, never.
No, don't do that.
I see that we have just like a few minutes before we hit an hour. So can I just take us to this question I want to ask you about, now that we are in the world making headway, such as it is, in bringing more light onto especially historical composers who happen to be women. I'm wondering how that feels to you as a composer who happens to be a woman. And does that make a difference to you? Also, maybe, are there any historical female composers that you feel a connection with in particular? Or
it's such a great question. It feels wonderful, you know, because as much as sometimes you can sort of get a little celebrity attention by being the only girl in the room, like whatever fake shimmer that is, it wears off real fast. And gentlemen are wonderful, but you start to feel lonely, and that's too much of a burden for any one person to feel. You know, and I'm already coming with immense privilege as a white woman. You know, I don't even have the same obstacles in my path as people, you know, of color and LGBTQ members of society, and the discrimination they have faced. So it feels wonderful to have just more available all around us, more music and more of this reminder in our daily lives that we're not alone, that women are totally capable and have always been capable of writing music and being creatives and leaders in that way. Some of the composers that I always found so inspiring was obviously like Hildegard von Bingen. I mean, the first composer that you learn about in Western music history class, and like that's just so fantastic that it's like, bam, woman.
Such
I
power.
love art song composers, Clara Schumann, Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel, Maria Malibran and Cécile Chaminade and Pauline Viardot. And I didn't really sing much of their music until the last 10 years. And, you know, I got catching up to do on my rep sheet. You know, that's how things are starting to change. So it's very encouraging. We still have more work to do.
Right.
But it's wonderful. And I look forward to it continuing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it feels like every few months you look back and say, okay, well, actually we are further ahead now than we were then and then and then. So, but lots to do still.
Yeah, but I think these kinds of things make it available for teachers and for performers who maybe haven't studied for as many years, right? We have sort of that so many people we can serve who are playing pieces that are of this level of difficulty and challenge that you're championing. I mean, it's a wide variety, but you know, that is so important, you know, that it's not just the most challenging avant-garde pieces. Those are wonderful too, but that it's music that many, many, many people can play and enjoy. I think it's fantastic.
That leads to a little advertisement that our anthologies are coming out very soon for early elementary and late elementary level piano music she wrote piano anthologies for students of those levels. I thought it was going to be end of November. Oops, it's very soon though. Anyway, but that was my little plug, and we'd love to plug your shop. Do you have a shop? Where can we find your scores? Where can we find recordings of your other works and also of Blue Whale?
Yes, the best place to go is my website, lisanehermusic.com. And from there, you can find a link to my web store and my composition list. And in addition to Blue Whale, there's Kelp Forest, there's Dungeness Crab, there's Moon Jelly. So there's a few other piano pieces for pianists who are in various stages of learning, as well as chamber music and vocal music galore.
Beautiful. So we'll make sure to get that proper link. It's looking like we can't get this Instagram live onto YouTube anymore, which is where I've promised to put links. So unfortunately, we can only put it in Instagram.
Sure, if people go to my Instagram
useful,
profile. But you can go to the link in my Instagram bio.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I mean, I'll put the link under this as well, but everyone knows we can't click on it. So, Lisa, it's been just an absolute joy and inspiration to get to know you a little bit, and just hear all the ins and outs of Lisa Nearness.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Erika for a gorgeous performance, and to both of you for leading this. And it's just opening up such a huge world to listeners and to pianists, and helping me connect with my pianist self, which I don't pull out as often because I don't have my chops up as a professional, but as a lover of the instrument, it's just wonderful to get more ideas of things I can play. So
fantastic. Excellent. And again, just a reminder to join us next Friday at 2, where we talk with Pencil Pushers Molly all about amazing work she's done to promote Fanny Hensel's music, piano music especially. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so exciting. So thank you to both of you. Thank you to all of you who joined us, and for your lovely comments and everything. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.